Well, good afternoon to everybody. I've just got a notification that we are also now live on Facebook. Wow, well done. Yes, technology in the past 2 years has really just like shown me a very, you know, interesting way of interacting with the world. So, hi to everyone. My name is Azania. I'm co-chairperson of the IBFC Independent Black Filmmakers Collective here in South Africa. And yeah, I'm happy to see all our people, everyone's joined in. Hi, Onati. Hi, JJ. Hi, Londega, Ramadan. Hey, as we go on, I'll also just say hi to everybody. Hey, there's Megan3. Hey, Megan3, how are you doing? Essentially today, this is episode 2 of our Game Changer series, where we celebrate women in our film industry, excellence. We celebrate, perfection in what we do. And today we are celebrating 2 women. One name is our board member, Bianca Isaac, all the way from KZN. Hey.
Hey.
And we are celebrating recognizing Rethabile all the way from Johannesburg, from Burnt Onion. Hey, doing some great things there on Netflix. I tell you, yeah, we have all been tuning in and been passing around the links and making sure everyone watches all the shows that you put together. Well done. Hey, before we get into any conversation, it's going to be kind of a tag team between mainly with Megan3 and the 2 ladies, but it's going to be a conversation. So look forward to the ladies interacting with themselves, with each other, and also us trying to get a segue in, because when the conversation flows, it flows, and we know this. We don't have that much time. We have until 5:30. We might push it to 5:45, but then we'll kind of cut off at that point. And now we're going to go into trailers from both of them. So I guess, Tunde, over to you. Please start with the trailers. And again, everyone, if it buffers on your side, it's just the way it is. It's internet connections. If it goes stops and someone pauses, please forgive us. It's just technology. It is what happens. And we're going to try and help you reconnect. But thank you so much for joining us. Episode 2 of IBFC's Game Changers trailers. Thanks, Tunde.
That he died a few hours ago.
What?
How did that happen? His heart stopped.
No, that's impossible.
Apparently that can happen. No one is touching his books, his clothes, or anything that belonged to him. Okay. So you just want to keep his stuff around like he's still alive? You know, it's amazing that my parents kept it together. They actually had a happy marriage. I'll say the same for Ricky or Amy or Melissa.
Claire staying at the house.
First she takes my husband and now my house.
This is what we want.
No, Roy, it's what you want. What about what I want?
You think you're the only person that hates your life?
If we hate our lives so much, then why do we stay together?
Maybe that's why you're scared to marry me.
What?
You're scared to end up just like them.
I'm not like them, and you are definitely not like them. Jan, we're going to be leaving just now.
You know we're supposed to have left early this morning, and look at the time now.
Great, sounds true. Tell me something about that.
Ricky. Babes, thank God it's you. Why are you, babes?
Where's my money?
I mean, I don't have it with me right now.
Let's try this again. Where's my money?
If anyone can handle this family, it's you.
Janet, you need to stop thinking about yourself for a minute, and we need to start thinking as a unit, as a family.
Oh my God, you're not even joking.
Oh, lady, shut your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Hey, boys! Why are you listening to Ricky? He's drunk. You're drunk. What's going on?
3 days. How bad could it be?
What makes you think you know the Bhagavad Gita better than I do, huh?
No, I'm just saying.
You're just saying our yearly calendar is incorrect and that you are going to rewrite the whole Bhagavad Gita like you write one of your children's books. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying? No, it's correct.
Oh my God. Hi. I'm so happy to see you. I can't say the same.
Hey, husband, she's ready to start. She's got cancer.
lalela angikwazi ukulala la ngilinto ngifangela bonile izwe lengaphandle ngidinga usuku olulodwa nje kuphela ukuthi ngiphume kule ndawo. It's a bad idea. Trust me, I have got a PhD in bad ideas. My last hope. Fine.
Here we go again.
Mama,
Sengikhona songakhuleka kwenzani? Anything. We will lay my mother to rest Saturday. But Christmas Day is on Saturday.
Yeah, it's also our first wedding anniversary ever.
Yeah, it's also my mother's first burial ever. Xmas family.
My dad needs money for an operation.
You see, the man has been a no-show your whole life.
what the actual? Moments before Ukoko passed on, she gave me this letter addressed to somebody in Durban. Just trying to honor what your mother would have wanted. Is this the only cake here in Durban? A big hat.
I can't do that with money.
Listen, all the time, come on, Strameka. Valencia is like a ward. She is making my life completely unbearable.
I am the one who has to put the bill for this.
This is the one now.
Credits.
Listen, just for once, let me get them things in.
So I hope that we all watched at least 3 Days to Go and How to Ruin Christmas into, so we can have a really great conversation. So, ladies, you know, biographies are a thing, hey? So I'm, yeah, it's, you know, when I'm looking at your bios here and I'm wondering, where does one start? Do you start at the beginning, the end, the middle? So I'm just actually going to leave it to you, leave it to the conversation, leave it to the Q&A to go into your bios and who you are. But I think, you know, let's start with there. Let's kind of get through that and give everyone context as to who you believe you literally are. I mean, I can see already, you know, tears of the memories of the things you've been through. It's like, I can see it, the pain.
COVID and KZN looting. The memories.
2008, where do we start? So anyways, on a serious note, I'm going to start then with Chabi. Who are you? Like, what defines you in a sense of your biography? What defines you as a film practitioner, a film producer? What is it that defines you and who are you? Let everyone know.
I would say that I'm not a one-trick pony, if that makes sense. And that's what kind of defines me, is because I stick my hands in all the pots when it comes to film and television. Started in front of the screen as a kids presenter, then decided, actually, I want to call the shots because I have a very controlling nature. And I think Bianca and I are alike in that way. That we're quite controlling in that way, and decided that, you know.
I'm so glad I'm not alone.
Exactly. I know you, girl. That's why I'm like, I know she'll relate to the controlling aspect of it. But essentially, telling stories has always been a vibe. Started a company with my brothers. Didn't think it would become what it has. I mean, you always have a vision and a strategy. But to see where we've come to now is a bit crazy for me. And then I stumbled into directing because of the genre that we play in, which is comedy. And that, you know, it's not done that much in this country. So we were like, who better to do it than us? So yeah, that's kind of like who I am. I'm not a one-trick pony. And I just wanted to say, Bianca, I actually think it's funny that watching the trailers, I'm like, oh, look, ours is also a funeral. And it's also in Durban.
And there's also a wedding.
Exactly. I'm just like, clearly comedy is rooted in all these dramatic things of funerals, weddings. There's always some sort of drama.
Yeah, you know, I'm just trying to imagine the kind of drama and comedy just between the three of you siblings in the house, just alone. You know, from like day dots. You know, kind of like the comedy of the first two. The comedy of the first two, as the last one was in the stomach. Like, okay, what do we do when it comes? What do we do? Like, who drops it first?
The calmest bunch of siblings you'll ever meet ever. I'm probably, because I'm the baby, I'm the craziest one. That I'm the problematic one. The other ones are pretty normal.
Oh wow. So Bianca, you've come a long way and you still got a long way to go, right? So, sometimes as a legend, a lot of people see that there's a lot of legacy that comes with the work you've done. And you've been here for a while. So I mean, like, you've got a lot to impart, and there's, your biography speaks for itself in many, many ways, as in terms of longevity of your participation in the industry. So give us, who are you in terms of what you would call your own bio?
Who am I? Is it okay to say that I'm not the same person I was last year, and I probably won't be the same person again next year? I'm also learning these things as I go along. I started off in the television world. I mostly did dramas, like very deep stuff, things that make you cry. And then and then I wanted to branch out into film. And I think at that time, no one was ready to take the step into film. As a country, we were still building an audience and building this idea of going to the cinema again and making content for people of color that wasn't boxed into one particular thing. And so one day I was like, I'm just going to do it. So yeah, and so I just packed my things and ended up doing it. Although it didn't come that easy. We pretty much had to work a couple of jobs so that you could save some money to get in there, because it turns out you can't get into this industry until you have some money. So that's kind of it. I mean, it's the reality. This is quite an expensive industry to be in. And if you don't have that money, you've got to really save it so that you can at least buy. I think it's more about buying trust in yourself. If you're willing to put this money in your own project, then everyone else is willing to do that as well. I got into films, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to stay in the film industry. I love doing collabs with people, from The Wound down to Kings of Mulberry.
Hopefully Burnt Onion soon as well.
There's a project. There might be a collab coming soon.
It has to be. It absolutely has to be.
And I managed. I'm not Reti is quite good. She can dabble, and I've always said I take my hat off to Reti and the team. These guys are gangster. They could do 4 projects this year, and I'm still on project 1.
It's called it's our own suicide mission, clearly.
Yeah. And then I fell into directing, and it turns out that I really like it. I just finished directing my second feature, which shot.
Is it just me, or has Bianca frozen?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's one of those things that
post-production.
Oh, there she is.
There she is.
There you are.
Oh yeah, I was saying I just finished shooting a film, and yeah, I'm in that phase of post-production where I feel like I wish I had all the shots that I know I didn't shoot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm here to stay, and we're always looking for awesome teams to hang out with and projects to work on with. Yeah, that's my story.
Hey, yeah, as we welcome more people coming. Hi, Sis Lindy. Hi, Mainzega. Hi, Jayan. Hi, everyone. It's always good to kind of recognize who's in the room. Also to promote IBSC for membership, for everyone to kind of join in the party. I mean, we're a grown organization. So last time we had one of these conversations, episode 1, we discussed, advancing and sustaining, film brands, through sequels, kind of just staying in the game, working with different facets and assets of filmmaking. And this time we're really talking about multitasking and kind of taking the conversation a bit deeper, right? So talking about multitasking and evolving, in an ever-evolving media environment. So it's not necessarily limited to film. Content is such a broad conversation now, and I think people now, at least I speak about, content facilitation rather than just film facilitation, because there's just so much going on. So I think, we've spoken about yourself, but, let's just go back to you, Rethabile, in terms of who are your major influences in the multitasking space, right? So not necessarily influences in filmmaking, but those people or those entities, whomever it is, really that really helped you understand, how to become multifaceted in your craft.
Well, I think that's an interesting question. We're actually talking with Bianca now. It's like, who's influencing us at the moment? Because it kind of shifts year to year. Like whoever you thought was amazing 10 years ago, it might not be a thing now. But I suppose if I were to lean back on someone and look at what they've managed to achieve, you look at a Shonda Rhimes, right? So I feel like her path has somehow also influenced how you could be, because I'm trying to build this great conglomerate production house that is going to be making all sorts of content. We're not limited to films. We're not limited to just making narrative stories. We do reality TV, and just finding talent to carry that baton on. Like the reality is, I'd love to say I'm going to direct every piece of work that we do and I'm going to write every piece of work that we do, but that's not sustainable. So at this point, we're reaching a point where, yeah, maybe someone else will pitch us a Bridgerton, for example, and we'd be like, okay, go show run and do it. That's why collaborating is important. That's why there's this other project with Bianca that we are trying to get her to collaborate on as well. So I think that's very much in an American space. And we're trying to carve out our own path. And what's exciting is what's available to us now. We started up and it was just literally like the national broadcaster and DSTV. That was who you had to play with. Now it's open up to so many SVOD people coming to the country. Like I'm excited about all the new players, and I think it's going to make the industry more competitive. But the more exciting thing is also allowing for different kind of content to come through. So that's where I sort of sit in terms of like, we're trying to make it bigger, build bigger, find new interesting voices. We're not trying to just be like the only ones making the content. We're always looking for new voices, writers. Seriously Single was our first feature film that we did, and that was written by Lwazimvusi, and it wasn't meant to be our first feature, but she pitched it, and then we were like, wait a minute, why are we worried about what we're writing? This is what needs to be done first, and it turned out to be a success. So so I'm just moving forward, looking forward to collaborating with more people, I suppose. I don't know, Bianca, you're on a different kind of path to where I'm at.
No, definitely. What is your path? What is your path, Bianca, in terms of like, what part do you enjoy the most? Sometimes people say stay in your lane. Which lane is your lane of preference?
When they say stick in your lane, sometimes I always have to remind myself as well about my lane and how I should stick in it. I don't think it's one thing specifically. I think when they say stick in your lane, like handle your business. If this is the thing you're doing it in and you've committed to going in there on these capacities, then follow through on that part. Stop trying to find out what somebody else is doing. Like for Bianca to worry about what Reti is doing is silly. Our goals are different, but we will find that project that will bring us together. We've tried once before, we missed, we're going to try again. Hopefully this time our schedules align and we can actually do it. But for me, being multifaceted came out of, started as not having any options. That's where, and I'm not sure, I think Reti also started there. We didn't have many options. We had to build ourselves as producers, especially when you break away and become independent filmmaking. It's very difficult. You have to raise all the money yourself. It's a long process. We don't have the money to keep somebody on to do that, The next thing, it's 2 years, if you don't even add COVID in, right? It's 2 years, we're still trying to finance. Then we've got to shoot this, and that's only 50% of the process. I still, there's still another 50% to go until you get to the release of the film. So it is extremely exhausting to be all of those things, to be the writer, to be the director, to be the producer. It's not like there aren't people out there. There are people, but is everybody willing to collab on that level of time and longevity, and money is a real issue, and you don't expect people to commit to a project for a fraction of the cost. We understand that. So it started off with that place, and I'm starting to feel like I don't know which one I like better. Don't get me wrong, I love paperwork though, right? So like, I mean, I can do
We're
like
producers at heart. We're producers at heart.
I can write you like a business plan right now. The paperwork is my thing. But what I'm finding more and more is that the writing aspect and the directing aspect is coming alive. Maybe the hard part is letting go of producing. I don't know if I'll be able to let go of that. I'd want to stay involved in the process as much as possible because you add value to it. It's not a control thing, right, Tracy? No,
yeah,
not at all.
Not completely. I mean, maybe just a little bit.
I look at the trailers, the two trailers that that were put out, right, and they are kind of similar in nature. And Tabby, you pointed out that it really is very similar. It's just kind of recognizing two different, I guess, cultures within the same, literally within the same city. Okay, and what I then kind of have to ask myself is, what is it that makes, and I think, both of you can answer this, and you can probably just tag team on this one, is what makes the project stand out for you? How do you choose that particular project? I mean, just to everyone here, I just know at around 5:10, we'll just go into Q&As. And so please, start posting your questions or kind of thinking about other stuff. But what is it that makes you choose that film for that particular product to be developed even further? You've spoken about there's different types, but there must be a North Star. There must be a criteria that you go through. There must be a process. It's not fluid. What is that process? So then if there's anyone here that's new to the industry, they know that this is step 1, step 2, step 3, as sterile as possible. If we can, both kind of give me that.
Sure. I'm going to throw it to you first, Bianca, while I think about it.
Sure, I'll take this one. For me, it's really about the story, because I don't commit. It's two things. The first two things is the story and the person. So I'll definitely want to meet you for a cup of coffee, because I have to, so I could know, are you good people? It's something you feel. And if I read your script and I'm really, really attached to it, then I make the decision to commit to that thing. But that's why I said I'm always at heart a producer, because if you don't have enough producers, projects are not going to get off the ground. So if there is something in that story that speaks within, that resonates with you, and it resonating doesn't mean I have a history and I can relate to it. Resonating means I read this script and I think it's so dope, I want to do it. Because you will then drive the process, because you still have to get through probably 4 or 5 more drafts until you get to a shooting script. It's all, and so you want to commit to building that story. So it is really about the story, I guess, from idea phase or script phase, and then is the person really into this? Because I find a lot of time, also for me, it's business sense, right? If I'm talking to you, I need somebody who I'm going to make a film with to speak business to me, not tell me how they want to get their salary from the budget and call it a day. Let's talk about this story, what we're going to have. Making it, as I said, making it is just a small part. What are we going to do with this film after that? What's the strategy for it? Where does it fit in the world? Because for the other person, if I'm producing, for the director, it's a career builder. So as a director, where do you want to go next with this project? Is it a festival type film? Then, we all in the onset agree this is a festival strategy. You understand what that process entails in terms of releasing that film, where to position that film in the market. Is it a commercial film? Why are we doing this? Do we know the outcome? I very rarely work with people that don't see the business sense in because then you're not filmmaking, then you're just looking for grants to put something together, which is not a good mindset. And for anybody starting out in the industry, everything you do in this process should be a business. How do you grow yourself? If you're a writer, you should be growing yourself as a business, because really, if you want to make it in this industry as a writer, you should at any given point have 10 scripts to offer. So what are you doing when you're not writing? I hope you're writing. Even when you're not writing, because I'm working even when I'm not working. So.
Exactly. There's always million productions in various stages of either development, production, or whatever. And that's what, and she hit the nail on the head. I think it's a business, and I think people fail to see that. It's already hard enough trying to get money to get a project off the ground. But then you need to pay back those people that you're borrowing all this money for. Otherwise, our industry will never grow in that sense. So I think people never think that far. They're just like, oh, I'm just going to make this movie and we're just, it's going to release it and that's fine. And it's like, no, that's not fine. What are we seeing? Is it an indie film? Is it just for festivals to get that kind of recognition, like Bianca said? Or are we saying commercially viable films? Okay, cool. So does it hit the right points? If I read your script, I'm like, what's going to make people want to go see this movie? What's going to make people pay? What's going to make people stream it? And I know people don't want to talk that way because it takes away from the art, but the filmmaking is also business, and that is the art of filmmaking, return on investment. And I don't think film schools talk about that kind of stuff enough as well. It's just like, how does your film get out there? What's the waterfall? At what point do you get money as a producer, which is literally always at the bottom? You might not even see money for 2 years sometimes. And that's what I think Bianca's also trying to say about staying the long game. Like, a lot of the time you have people who just want to get their salary and be out, and you're like, but it's deeper than that. A film's lifespan is more than a year, always. And you never know at what point, depending on what deals you're making. And I do think film schools could do more in teaching that side of like the business. And, script writing is important, the art is important, the talent is important, but also the return on investment is important. Because I want to know that I'm going to die leaving some sort of like legacy for my family, my kids, not just knowing that I owe, people money, the IDC money. Or anything like that. I don't want to die knowing I still owe people money. And it's hard. I say it as if it's easy, but it's not. We all know what our film numbers are like. But I think if you come up with models that can work for what you're trying to do and be creative about it, it's possible.
So do any of you have a studio model as part of your reality, right? Do you have it set up into 2026, 2027? Do you have that situation whereby you can employ? And if not, what is the kind of, what are the barriers? What are the stumbling blocks? I mean, funding is always going to be a problem, but what are the strategic stumbling blocks that you come across? And is it, then I'll ask about the women aspect just now. What are those business stumbling blocks or strategic ones?
I think this is such an interesting question, Adena, because you're actually going to get two different answers from us. Like, I am I'm still, the 10-year plan is now in year 5. And when I constantly go back and revisit the goals and the plans, it's constantly evolving. But to want to only make films is a very difficult business to run the studio model. And so I'm hoping that in 5 years, I'm giving the 10-year plan the rest of its 5 years that it needs to culminate into a studio model, because I also, it's a lot of things. You got to gain trust, you got to gain the trust of everybody, from financiers to successful releases to distributors, to everybody in the chain, so that that model that you actually want to put forward works. It's very difficult with independent filmmaking when you want to, when you do everything yourself. But for me, I think in 5 years, I would be able to do the full-on studio model where I'd be able to employ somebody full-time. At the moment, I try and execute it by offering, how could I give you a boost in what you're doing, right? So how does my Fig Jam as a company hook up with a young director or a young producer who needs a boost to get their first film off the ground? Because I can't offer you employment, I can offer you business services as a collab. Until I get to a place where I want to hire a GM to run 5 of my projects. But that's a career choice. I don't know if I want to do 5 projects in 1 year at the moment. So, but Rachel's going to tell us all about that.
We're on the opposite end of that spectrum. We've got a couple of projects, but also it's because we had applied for the NFBF fiction slate, and which gave us an opportunity to develop 9 feature films, which we now have. So now it's about let's make them. So but funding, that's the problem. We can't afford to have people on permanent employment, but we have developed with writers, and now we are trying to find models where people will help fund a slate, opposed to just funding one project at a time. Because the point is, we do have a slate, and it would be better. And I mean, we're still trying to build a track record. We've only done 1 feature film, but it did pretty well for the first feature from a company. So hopefully, in future, it's if we say, hey, we actually have 3 films.
Most watched film. She's so modest. Most watched film. Did do really well. It was the most watched film.
Did really, really well. But I'm just saying, if we want to go to a funder now or financier and say, look, we have 3, we can try shoot it in back to back. Use the same crew. That means people are employed for a longer amount of time. That's kind of the conversations we will obviously try to have.
Scale can come in and play. Yeah.
Exactly. So so that in 5 years, we're also on sub. Okay, cool. Because I'm constantly, as the creative director at Burnt Onion, looking for scripts, looking for writers, looking for stories that we would love to make. But that's obviously going to be nothing that happens in the next 2-3 years, because we've already got those plans. But then you've got to start looking ahead of that time and ahead of that game. That's why I'm so impressed with Bianca. She's been no, I'm serious. You've made 3 films now. I remember watching The Jakes Are Missing, and I was like, man, she made a film. I was like, you made a film. I was like, this is so cool. Because at that time, we were still very much entrenched in television and commissions and doing broadcaster type things. So to see someone actually do something, you don't realize how much it inspires you a lot to be actually, I'll just make it. It might not be everything that you want, because you'll make it for a smaller budget. We'd applied to the Emerging Black Filmmakers Transformation Fund for the funding for Seriously Single. So the budget was this. We shot it in 18 days. That should tell you. But the point is, we were just we have to do it. You just have to eventually jump at some stage, even if it's just to learn. And I think for us, it was important to learn the process of what it actually means to make a film. And now that we've done 1, we can now go into the next few with a better understanding of how to make it work or not. But being female and directors has come with its challenges, because I know that I only was able to direct Seriously Single, be it with my brother anyway, but we were only able to direct because it was ours. I don't know if the same opportunity would have been afforded if I was, it was somebody else's project or it was commissioned elsewhere. And I think Bianca's had the same kind of experience there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Alfonso. Hi, Lala. Just saying hi to people that I'm seeing their names. Hi, Abdul. Let's get into that, right? I'm listening to you and I'm hearing business people talking, to be honest. I'm not, yes, I see it.
Deep down.
I've looked beyond that, right? And I tend to find myself looking beyond my femininity, and I just so happen to be female, I'm in the room. I just so happen to be a person of color, I'm in the room, and I think that people have responded to that, to me, and I think that's just my attitude and just the way it is. So from your side, ladies, just before we get into Q&As, yeah, it's a stumbling block being a woman, right? It really is. But are you finding that you forge it differently? Do you forge it differently? If you do, how do you forge it differently?
Tough questions. And then you left the tough questions for the end. All right. For me, I know as a producer, I mean, as us as producers, you can't touch us, right? Hands down, we're good at that. We can do that with our eyes. You know, that's something that comes naturally. And it's also something that people perceive easier or accept easier. And so I find in the directing seat, it is a lot harder because people don't know where the line is. You know, it's so easy in the directing seat for an outsider to say, oh, shit, she's overreacting. That's how chicks are. Or, you know, she said fuck, but, you know, she's probably having a bad day. I'm sorry. Sorry, I don't know what the I did really well. I've only squeezed in one. So, you know, like when you go that route, people are like, oh, she's like this, you know, she throws a tantrum, yeah, I find it's different caps when you wear different caps. So the directing cap is a very difficult cap to wear and forge through, because if you are that director who knows exactly what you want, and yeah, you want to, you accept everybody's contribution, but when you want what you want, that's okay also. Give me what I want. Let me see if I like it or not. I can change my mind 50 times. That's okay. It's funny how when you're writing, you're allowed to, you write the whole script, you go back, you reread a scene. You could even rewrite that scene on the day. You know, it has space for that. Production, no one questions you. When you make a decision as a producer, they understand and know this one is a producer, hands down, we can. That's kind of, it's a forge. It's a heavy one. Like you've got to constantly fight it. And then I think it's worse when women jump on that bandwagon. And it's not just guys. So I don't know. What about you, Racy?
Yeah, I think that it's like also trying to trust your own voice, right? Because you often find, even with directing, you might be working with DOPs that are way more experienced and have been doing this for years, or even actors that are legends in the making. And it's trusting as much as, and I get you, because it is like, yo, are they going to be mad if I say, actually, I don't want it like this, and tell them the night before? But it's for the betterment of the project. None of this changing the mind or whatever is just because we want to. It's because we want to make this project the best project ever. So for me, it's like trusting yourself to speak up, even if you might be deemed difficult, even if you might be deemed, oh, she doesn't know what she wants, or oh, she's only the director because this is her company anyway. So we just all better shut up.
I also found the money, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what does she know anyway? This is all her thing. But you know, it was on How to Ruin Christmas. We directed some episodes as well, and one of our actors, Ntate Owen Sejake, after a scene I just directed him in, obviously legend, has been doing this for years, and called cut, and he came to me and he's like, this, I never thought I'd see this happening. Oh, a Black female as young as my daughter behind the camera saying action and calling the shots. And to see it from that perspective of a man who's been in the industry and thought this will never, he was like his mind was literally blown. And I feel like, you know, I'm glad that in his lifetime he got to see it, but clearly it's not happening enough. If that was like his reaction on this front, it just shows you there's not enough. And I can even say it myself, like we're always looking for directors, female Black directors, specifically for certain genres. And it's always hard to sort of, you know, find that, and also find people that will trust you in backing whoever this person is. Because unfortunately, sometimes it's going to be the person that's never directed the feature. Like me, I was that person once until I directed a feature. And I just took a chance and a risk, which I think a lot of financiers and stuff aren't willing to do because there's so much at stake. But we'll never grow if we don't sometimes just take the risk.
And that's also speaking about the small part. Remember, there's also and sometimes it's always easier to stay with the scars of those, and it ends up replacing all the beautiful things. There's also a bunch of kick-ass people that love working with us, that are like, where's that, we want that fire energy, where's that Bianca energy in the mornings? You know, those are the people I like super excited about, let's do this, we also mustn't forget there is a movement in the industry that really supports this. And I mean, all my actors are gems. I think I've been blessed with good actors that really understand. Also, I make mostly female-led movies, so we're one big chick flick all the time.
Same here.
We offend a lot of guys, though, right? I mean, yeah, that's easy.
It's a lot
Not
to
even
take.
breakfast.
Your mic is mute. You're on mute.
After 2 years, guys, I still don't know how to mute. Okay.
Don't know, same boat, same boat.
Okay, just as I hand over to Megantri looking all fabulous there, I love that neck piece. You know, Sis Lindy, I love the quotes because Judge Maya is my hero. I mean, it's like, I am a woman who is a judge, not a woman judge. Honestly, guys, I walk into a room and I just so happen to be female and I just so happen to be Black. Do not taint me for that. But constantly we have to keep reminding people and having to prove our femininity, having to prove our Blackness through documentation. I walk in, I say, hey, this is who I am. And I think I stopped kind of taking it in personally, and I figured, well, you know what, deal with it. The genes took place somewhere many, many years ago, in a system that I had no control over. And this is what popped out, is a Black female. So I just so happened to be that. But I guess we are going to go into questions now. If there's any questions from the team, I'm going to hand over to Megantri to facilitate that. But thank you, ladies, very much for allowing me to have a conversation with you. A lot of fun, a lot of laughs, but I mean learning along the way, which is really, really important as well. So Megantri, over to you, my co-chair, and everyone else. IBFC application forms are available on www.ibfc.org.za. There are some big things coming from IBFC, really good collabs, really good partnerships that are inside and outside the film industry. We're not just partnering inside the film industry. But over to you, Megantri. I'm going to turn off my camera so the focus is on the three of you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Elsa.
Wow. It was so amazing to hear your conversation and your trials and tribulations. I'm sure you each could write a book. Guys, let's write a book. Let's write a book, okay? I mean, we need to document our stories. Because guess what? If we don't document it, no one else will. And why I love the fact that IBFC is doing this Game Changer series is acknowledging that, you know what, here's some people who are leading the charge, and this is what they've actually been doing. So hats off to you. Yeah, just, I mean, of course, the last conversation about being a woman director and finding Black women directors, guys, I think what I've realized with talking to lots of people is that Black women are steered towards producing, not directing, and not cinematography. And so those are my missions. So if you need some Black women directors, I try and keep track of as many Black women directors as possible. In this changing landscape, it's not always easy. It's so exciting that actually there's so many more who are coming online. So even though it's a struggle and it's a challenge, wow, the fact that we can say, oh, last year there were 4 films, made by women or made by Black women. I don't know what the numbers are. I mean, one has to keep tracking, but even if it's the last 4 years, it's not enough. I think we may be around 10 women of color who have made features. It's not enough, but yeah, you're doing it, and all we can do is do the best that we can and encourage other people. So well done for just getting out there and doing it. One of the things is just balancing the directing and producing. Like, how do you negotiate that when you're producing and directing a feature? What's your strategy for success? Or
getting a great line producer. I'm like, get yourself a great line producer. And obviously also make sure your ducks are in a row before you start shooting. I think from our side, that was like important. If you've done the prep work, then the shoot should handle itself. And having a strong kind of production hub team as the brains behind you, that really works. But, you know, sometimes life throws COVID at you, and it throws looting in KZN while you're shooting the show. And that becomes a big juggling hat as you're trying to be like safety and security, but also delivering this product. I like to get line producers that you can rely on, that when you're on set, you know stuff has been handled. But as much prep work as possible is important. I know we don't always have that luxury with timelines and schedules. But I think if you're prepped, then things should work itself out. We know film is film, and Murphy's Law is Murphy's Law, but as much prep as possible will get you over the line.
Thank you. How about you, Bianca?
Yeah, it's true. Production is the most important. I cannot tell you how, no matter how prepared you are, if your line producer and your production manager do not carry that baton on, you know, I've got so many colorful words at the moment, but it's rough. And when that happens, your producer hat kicks in, because you're like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it myself right now. Yeah. And that's when that whole, because if you don't bring it together, it's not gonna work. And the difference is, when you're an independent filmmaker, Reti and I are not in a position to sit back and say, well, I'm the director, they'll sort it out. Oh, you're also the producer. You need to get up your ass and you need to fix it yourself, because nobody's going to fix it. So sometimes it requires you to take that hat off, and it might be slightly difficult. I've experienced that a bit. It's just easier to, and the other person that really helps you is your AD. You need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go to a couple questions. I can talk about that scenario all day long, and if you're acting in the movie as well. Did either of you act in the movie as well?
No.
Okay. You're like, no, producing and directing is enough.
Okay. Saving that for 2030.
Yeah, exactly. I cannot imagine anything more stressful than having to
be
like,
God. The celebrity herself.
But something happens when you're behind the camera. Okay, so a question that was asked is, how do you, like, have you worked with female crew and Black women crew in your value chain? And maybe speak to how successful you were or not. And that also then obviously speaks to the ecosystem that we are currently in.
Yeah, I think, it's always important for us to have, representation, like taking a risk, as I said, taking a risk on people, giving people chances, because that's the only way they'll grow their kind of CV. Our camera op on How to Earn Christmas is Evelyn, and, we work with such a strong female-led team. Obviously, I mean, I think it's the same ladies that work on most of these shows and everything like that. So it's like, you wish there was more, but you do grow as much as you can. It's also about having them intern and shadow as much as possible. Obviously, the other HODs like costume, production design are usually female. So I think in that side, we're pretty good. But on the technical side, more work needs to be done there.
Bianca?
I tried very hard. I went out of my way to find a female grip. It was very hard. Like, not just to get over this. Yep.
No, I'm just thinking, I think I only heard of one gaffer, like in Cape Town, and maybe one grip as well, but no one had her number to give it to me.
As Reti said, because there's so few Black HODs, everybody's busy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come in with your little project, and I say little, but in our lives, it's never little, but you come there with your little project and you're like, great, we're doing it in June. And then come May, you're like, actually, it's no longer June, it's October, but we're still doing it. And then, you can't, and these people are in demand. And the next thing, you end up, you try your best. I mean, I'd love for more to come out. From a producer's perspective, there are production perspective, there are a lot of them, but you know, down in Durban, we don't have a lot of resources. So, but we're training our resources. I've got fantastic people down in Durban that have been in the trenches, that are doing their thing. I think in a couple of years, they're going to be amazing. And if we continue doing this kind of development, and you know, that goes from creatives all the way down to business incubation. In a couple of years, these services are going to exist. You are going to be able to pick up the phone and call 5 women in that position that did not exist before.
Exactly.
Great. There is another question around your upcoming projects, but I wanted to leave that almost for just now and not immediately. And I like reminding people that technically South Africa may have our history of film in South Africa is over 100 years. It's almost 120 years or something, or slightly more. But the fact is, in terms of participation by Black people, we've just entered the game in 1994, technically. So where was Hollywood right at the beginning? Do you know what I mean? So I feel, yes, we are moving ahead. And I love that in Johannesburg and with the language specific dramas, we've had a lot more people trained up in heads of departments in a way that definitely hasn't happened in other places. Or let's just call it Cape Town, other places. But
that is like a bad word.
Yeah, I know. It's just like Cape Town.
But no, the reality is there's so much work that happens here, but the transformation has not kept pace with the number of Black people that are entering the industry. So we can look to Joburg and say, definitely it's happening at a level there, you know, that it is not in. But there are still lots of HODs. There are people who are ready, and many who, you know, have been doing it for 15, 20 years. So not necessarily getting into the whole HOD position and stuff, but we just got started. So I just want to remind us, we always have to push, but we have to remember that we just got started. But it's still very exciting. So what are the projects on the go? What's boiling in your pots, as it were?
Well,
we're trying to use one pot.
Exactly.
Try to finish cooking the one.
Exactly. Finish cooking the one, and then we'll think about the others. But on my side, it's movies. That's top of our list. We've been talking about 2 specific movies, Disaster Holiday and The Bola Man, both comedies for years. Bianca even knows, she's read scripts as well.
I'm there. This year, let's see.
Yeah, and also just like looking for other scripts, looking for the future for other scripts. We might not, you know, shoot them in the next 2 years, but we can already start developing so that when we just roll, like our whole thing is like, we just want to roll over our productions. Bianca thinks we're crazy, but you know, we're going to try do it.
I have mad respect for you guys.
I think if we talk about comedy in South Africa, it is really like South Africans love comedy. And
yes.
So I think it's a really good bet. My kids have always said to us, their dad and I, who are both filmmakers, they've said, oh, why don't you just like do some comedy, make a lot of money, then you can go and make those important films you want to make.
Yeah.
Whereas you are doing the comedy, which is fabulous, which is absolutely fabulous. So I think there's such potential for comedy it's not easy to pull off either.
No.
Yeah.
Not
so it's a fabulous niche.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we're going to do. You're not only going to see comedy from us. That's why we're also looking for different voices. It's just for now, it's like, you know, we have one sort of goal. We grew up on Leon Schuster. Like, how crazy is that, right? That was the comedies we all used to watch with our families. Like, and I don't know if we have those kind of iconic films. I'm calling them iconic in inverted commas because, you know, years has passed and you can start questioning that. But the point is, like, we have, like, I'd like to get to a point where we also have our own franchises and, you know, things that we love seeing every year, and our own The Hangovers, and that's like, I feel like South Africa needs to get there. But as you say, we only just got started, so the road is long. But I'm excited, especially for the opportunities and prospects that come with distribution now and platforms and where the content sits. So yeah.
There's a question that's come up around pathways into directing. I don't know if you guys want to comment on that. What are some of the best pathways into directing? And I feel as well that as a country, we've built out development and writing. We've built out supporting the producer, but I feel we have a big hole when it comes to directing, supporting directors on their journey, even like within the IBFC, to maybe, you know, do more conversations, have support groups for, hi, my name's Megantri, I'm a director. So the question about how do we network with directors, and how do we find our lanes and ways into directing? What are some of your suggestions to people who want to get in those lanes?
Tough one. I'm like, also like, yo, it is a tough one, because I mean, we've had to hire ourselves in order to get to breaking in where we have broken into. I suppose it's aligning yourself with directors that you admire. I would say if you're a lot younger and you haven't really tried it, or producers, approaching a producer and say, this is my project, I really want to do this, can we get a strong team together? It's a tough one, especially to be Black and with no experience. I mean, I'm going to say it, no experience in inverted commas, but it's about finding and aligning yourself with the right people. And I always say this now, we live in a time where content is easily accessible anywhere. And I know people frown upon doing like YouTube content or stuff like that, but it's always nice to have a reel of stuff, especially if you're younger, a lot younger and you're up and coming. It's also nice to just see where someone's head is at and where they're sitting, and also knowing that you're going to have to build your way up. You're not immediately going to land up as a director. Bianca and I came from, you know, making television for years and working on all these other projects. It's only after having all that knowledge that we were like, oh, maybe we can do this ourselves. I'm speaking for you, but Bianca, as if I know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about all those days we had to deliver, like on the day, and like, I also think it's well, apart from being if you want to direct, go into the AD department, because you'll learn how a set runs, and as a director you need to have an understanding of that as well. But being a director does not mean your first directing gig must be a feature, a whole feature. Can you at least tell a story in 5 minutes, please?
Yeah.
And that's not expensive. And if you're in the film industry, for you and 4 people to, surely you have like people you can collab with. Asking a guy to come, or a gal, asking one person to come and light a room for you or shoot something for you that's going to tell the story in 5, rather spend your money, whatever little money you have, making that beautiful. Because if you can get an opportunity, but if your cinematography is not on point, if your casting is not on point, if the acting is not on point, and if the story is not on point musically, and if you think about all of those elements in a 5-minute sequence, you're good, you're on the right path. Tell those little 5-minute stories. Stop wanting to go to 90 minutes. It's so expensive. You know, when we started back in the day, my first movie was R1 million. You know, my second movie was 3 million rand. And then we started growing and growing and growing. Nowadays, that was a long time ago. It's 2022. You try to do something for R1 million, you're not even going to shoot for a week. Like, you know, that's how life has grown. So I'm not saying think small. I'm saying if you don't have somebody who is there to back you up, who sees a creative mind, who says, you're the person I want to invest in, go write me a script, I'll finance it. You know, if you don't find that person, then do your own thing. Like go and do the 5-minute thing. Go and tell me the story in 10 minutes and you will find a platform. There's short content everywhere. But what you will learn is the art of filmmaking, which is very easy then when it comes to 90 minutes.
Got to keep doing. Yeah, you just got to keep doing.
Yeah. And I think also, like I'm an ensemble person. I very rarely can tell a story with one lead actor. I can only do ensembles at the moment. But try not to make your first project have 20 people in it. I mean, that's next thing you look at the cast list, and I'm always like,
this is what we do. It is part of the tradition. We have to try and put as many people on the screen as we can because we don't think we'll get another chance. So if you look at Spike Lee, if you look at Julie Dash, you know, the first African-American woman to have made a feature, it's always jam-packed. And I think make it, however, and then gradually you'll realize
you'll learn.
Lovely advice.
Began collaborating. I just saw now Abdul Jafari is on this call, and we just finished a film shooting here and in East Africa. And Abdul is like it's a young business in East Africa who does fixing. And I think also a lot of times it's collaborating because your directing experience, your producing experience doesn't have to be only here and only in your province. You will find African filmmakers out there that want to do collabs, who might have a script, who's looking for a director, who's looking for people to come. And we shouldn't be afraid to step out of our comfort zones and go and do that. It's Africa, it's your hometown.
I love that you went to Zanzibar. I'm like, oh, I wish you'd taken me with her.
I worked. I didn't get to do any of the fun things. I worked and then I had to leave.
No, but just being there in Zanzibar, it's just a legendary space. So many young people also don't think about continuity as another way
to get into directing. Yeah.
To like be really familiar with the anatomy of scenes and story and thinking through stuff. So I actually think continuity is not a bad roadmap in as well, because you're right there with the director. Like you are after the AD or even before the AD, it's continuity. Like where are we on the story? So I think if I can just throw my 2 cents, another pathway is definitely continuity as well.
I think we need to create another line item.
Assistant to the director?
Yeah. Somebody who like is by the director's hip the whole time, because that's the best place you're going to learn. We need to create that position. It's not the first AD, it's not the second AD.
Yes. And so George Lucas, for example, and Steven Spielberg, they got their first gigs like in Hollywood. They have that system. A Hollywood film, there is a space for a director, to shadow, to be an intern. So they got their like look in by having that. And I think that's a great idea to create a new line item. Assistant to the director. It is an actual
already in these line items that are just struggling to pay for.
Now there's a whole division called COVID, right? So now we would need to make it like last year there was no COVID. This year you're like grips, lighting, camera, and COVID.
And COVID, yeah.
And I always say, guys, get into stunts. If you can dance, if you can box, and you can ride a motorbike or a horse, get into stunts. I think that's a great way in as well. But that's just because I'm biased about stunts. Guys, awesome. I am not sure, just in terms of, we still have a little time. What is your, so Lungelo says there's no strong culture about needed internship. Let me see if I understand the question.
Oh, I see. It's difficult, Lungelo. Needed internship, right? And I think COVID has made it worse. You cannot, it is one, it's financially impossible for me to take an assistant in each department or to each person, an intern. As much as it's learning and you don't get paid, there are other cost factors that come with adding an extra person, right? For your crew to go from 40 to 50, it's a huge cost effect over the number, and you take it across the number of days and. But the other thing about internships is very difficult. Sometimes when you're in the thick of things and you only have 18 days to do it or 20 days to do it, and it's difficult to pass knowledge. It really is. And so I understand what you're saying in terms of the culture needs to allow this need for interns, but also we need interns that have some sort of industry. I don't know if I'm answering your question, some sort of industry thing. Because otherwise it's green. You have to go back to school and you don't have the time on a set to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, he's speaking specifically to like an internship around assistant to the director.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's a new line item.
Yeah, the new line item.
That's what they said.
I love it. Is it not a line item currently?
No.
No.
We can't afford it.
So
not currently on the budgets that we have.
Let's lobby, because we need more directors. You know, we need more people who can helm the story and be the vision and whatever. But you know, as we need, you know, we need everybody in the entire value chain. We need more technical people. But we definitely need more opportunities for directors, because the other big challenge with women directors in general is that you may do one film, and certainly in terms of African American history of cinema, one film in 10 years. And if you're lucky, you'll do the next film. So I mean, Bianca, amazing. You've already, you know, moved ahead. But in general, if you look at the track record, it's one every 10 years, or if you're lucky. So it's also to speed that process up. And yeah, so I love the line item idea, guys. That's the IBFC mandate that we've gotten now. We will lobby for.
New line item.
Check with our production people. Definitely. Any advice? Last parting words. Yeah, is about how do you maintain the long game? How do you like do what you're doing but still keep the hope alive and keep the energy and the sustainability? What are some of your strategies?
That's such an interesting question, because Bianca and I are like, sometimes hope is not alive because we're going through the most. We're like, are we going to get this project over the line? Are we going to be able to do it? But I think Bianca said it earlier, and then it's like, if you're a writer and you only have one project to offer at a time, are you really a writer? If I'm a producer and I don't have something already ready for the future, like what is my plan essentially? And it's always to constantly be creating. Not everything is going to get made now, but you never know in 10 years or whatever the case may be. So it's aligning yourself. I mean, there was a point where we were making YouTube content, and that was just us finding people that are like-minded with us and shooting skits. We're like, hey, this weekend, we're just going to shoot some skits, and they're still online and stuff. And that was us just trying to keep the juices flowing at the time where we weren't getting TV commissions. I know it looks like, oh, Burnt Onion Productions always got work. That's not true. That's not how this picture is actually flowing. We still have to pitch for every single kind of show that you still see us doing. So I'm constantly having to find those projects. What are we pitching next? Looking to the future, so that when the opportunity arises and it's like, oh, we have this. They're like, oh, we don't like this. Well, guess what? We also have this. It's like constant creating. And I know it's like, it can get disheartening. You're not getting any commissions. You can't fund your film. I mean, you said it as well, that we're new to this as Black filmmakers. In many ways, we're like new to this journey, and you just got to keep creating in whatever form or way that you can. Might not be made now, but it will be made in the future. Seriously Single was like written almost 5-6 years ago, and we only made it 2 years ago, which kind of shows you that it's a long game that you're playing. But you just got to keep going, got to keep creating.
Thank you. Thank you.
I guess
Bianca?
that's 100%. Don't stop because it's hard or tough. It's not easy at all. Actually, it's not. You know, whoever says, oh, you're in the film industry, did you meet so-and-so? I'm like, yes, they were late 5 times last week, and I'm really upset about it. It's not all fun, right? It's hard work, but I will say this, it's also highly emotional. You take your emotions everywhere. But once you purge all of that out and you get over it, it doesn't take long. You think it's going to last forever, but it doesn't. Once you purge all of that out, you understand why you do this. So you have to constantly rejuvenate yourself. Because the environment we work in is highly emotional, highly vulnerable. You know, we're putting ourselves out there every day. Everything you say, everything you record, everything you put together is quite a vulnerable space. So no matter how many times you get knocked down, or if you ever think you want to give up, it's okay. Just go through the motions. It'll pass over and you'll come back with the vuma that you need to carry on. And it's not going to happen tomorrow, even on a collab. So I do projects myself, and then I collab with people. Even on a collab, it's not something that, you know, Richie doesn't pick up the phone and say, hey, Bianca, what you doing tomorrow? You want to start pre-production? You know, we have a conversation like a year ago, 2 years ago, like, listen, there's this project, let's do it. Yeah, and then it goes away, then it comes back, and it will happen at the right time. And I understand breaking into the industry is very difficult. That's a longer game. It's very difficult. But don't give up. It's really fun once you get into it. It's stressful. I think I got a few more gray hairs all over the place. Like, you'll survive.
Not for the faint-hearted, but once you're in it, you'll survive. There's something knowing that you've overcome what you've overcome, and then at the end of it, an audience is like, oh, I love that, or I really related to that, and you're like, oh, thank you, because, you know, that's why we're doing this, so that as much as it was hard for us to know that, even if for me, it's like, even if 5 people are like, wow, that was good, and I enjoyed that, I'm like, okay, thank you, I will keep going. So yeah.
And also, don't be mad at funders, guys. You must understand this. The funding system can only fund so many projects. And we are way more filmmakers and projects than the funding system can hold. Just because you didn't get it this time does not mean you won't get it the next time and the next time. The only difference is by the time it's tried number 3, you've given up. You've decided, I don't want to apply for this thing anymore. I don't want to do this thing anymore. And if somebody comes back to you and says, these are the reasons why we're not going to fund this project, read it. Don't get upset about it. Enjoy everybody that tells you how bad it is. You're going to get it from funding all the way to release. I mean, there was one, I remember, I still will never forget this Twitter comment that told me I should kill myself after, like, you know, that Twitter comment still stays with me. And I'm like, imagine if I took that to heart. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have killed myself, but I probably would have figured out, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, right? Maybe I should do everybody, but take everything into consideration. Understand where everybody's feedback is coming from. Nobody does not want you to make the film. Exactly. And remember that getting the money and making the film is only 50% of the battle. It's not the whole battle. You still need to save your energy for post-production and release.
Which another piece release. Yeah. A whole other piece.
But these are important. People need to know that, because everyone thinks the red carpet is just around the corner. But it's quite a long journey.
Mm.
Thank you both so much for your heartfelt words of encouragement and sharing all your amazing insights as well. We really appreciate it. Guys, if you haven't joined IBFC yet, please join the Independent Black Filmmakers Collective, founded by pioneers, and we have to continue holding that baton and passing that baton. And I just want to, in closing, say, I want to quote Sylvia Vollenhoven from Keepers of the Kum. Beautiful book, amazing journalist and filmmaker. She says, stories matter, and who tells the story matters. So you matter, your story matters. Let's keep writing, let's keep producing, let's keep directing. And we will make that money as well. We're going to make that money. Bring on the money too. So important stories with the money, we'll make it. We'll reach our audiences. This is our dream for us. We'll connect with Africa and the diaspora more, and each other in the different provinces as well. So thank you all so much. Thank you for our audiences.
Don't forget about Durban, guys. We're young, we're there. I can see my Durban people on this call right now. Kishan, Asisipo, like they've come out, JJ. We're a great destination, so come through.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me as well. This has been great.
And thanks to the behind the scenes, Tunde, Ramadan, Nomsa. We love you. Thank you for all your hard work.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.